So what's up, Lamp Bears? I got some footage of the Adir fight from the Radiance ending. But for real, I have been playing Dark Souls 3 and it is very active. The online player base is still very active on there, even more active than Elden Ring. And Dark Souls 2, which I started another playthrough of, is really active as well. It's almost as active as Elden Ring. I'd say it goes in order of Dark Souls 3 being the most active online player base, then Elden Ring, then Dark Souls 2, and Dark Souls 1 isn't far behind. But unfortunately, Lords of the Fallen is behind all those as far as the connectivity of online PvP play. I do want to put a pause on my Dark Souls Love Fest and give you the new patch notes for update version 1.1.379. And I specifically chose the footage in this video because these are the bosses that are getting tuned up. The highlights of the patch are autosave stutter fix. A lot of people have been getting stutter while the game autosaves itself, and I've not personally ran across this, but this is an issue that has been constantly brought forth on all of the forums regarding this game. I think it's mainly a console issue though. There was also a blocker to the Radiance ending that left people out of Brahma's Castle. I've never ran across that one, but it was a large enough problem for a large enough percentage of the player base for them to address the problem. There have been multiplayer experience improvements, and I'll read. We improved several functionalities and added new quality of life features to enhance the overall multiplayer experience. Upon popular demand, we've added a small glowing indicator to make it easier to spot your partner's position when they are out of sight during co-op play. Invasion areas have received a redesign resulting in less disconnects when attempting to invade players. And lastly, the Vestige menu now offers new options for more convenient interaction. The thing I want most added to PvP play is to have a consumable so you can invade from anywhere on the map and you don't have to be in a Vestige and you don't have to open the menu. I've been playing Dark Souls 3 like I said, and you have the cracked eye orb. You also have the bloody finger and the recusant finger in Elden Ring. Just having these consumables where you can start an invasion and start co-op play from anywhere on the map is awesome, so you can continue your PvE journey and then go into PvP play as you see fit. And as soon as you come out of PvP play, you go back into your own journey in your own world, and if you so choose, you can continue or you can start an invasion again. But it's not dependent on you being near a bonfire, it's not dependent on you being near a Vestige. That would be a huge improvement and would make invading in this game a lot better. I do not like sitting in a Vestige and waiting and waiting and waiting. I want to be playing the game. The whole point of playing the game is to play the game, and if you don't have people that are online, active, that you can invade, you're going to be sitting at the Vestige for a very long time. And if you venture away from it and then you get an invasion, you're going to have to backtrack. So having a consumable in the menu would be awesome, and that would improve the play experience for me greatly. Now we come to the part of the patch that I want to talk about the most. These are the in-game boss improvements. This is from Hexworks. Based on our recent telemetry, we saw that in-game bosses were not as challenging as anticipated. Due to those findings, we've adjusted their behaviors slightly to put up a better fight. The particular bosses that they name are Abbess Ursula, who, as of my last playthrough, you can easily defeat within 30 seconds. That was the first boss fight footage that I had shared at the beginning of the video. According to Hexworks, she received an update to her boss behavior to make her more in line with late game challenges. Now this is very welcome because she was not an in-game boss. And it looks even worse when she's juxtaposed with the very next boss, the Judge Cleric. Now I personally found Judge Cleric to be the most challenging of the bosses, but her first phase was very easy to get past, and you can use the Umbral Eye of Loash to get through her entire first phase in seconds. But the second phase, with the burn status, the area of effect, and also the behaviors that she has, now that was an in-game challenge. The next boss on the list is the Sundered Monarch. He received an update to his behavior to make him more in line with late game challenges as well. Out of the 4 bosses listed, I would say Sundered Monarch and Abbess Ursula are the two biggest problems when it comes to late game challenges, because neither one of them feel like late game bosses. The next boss after him that they're addressing is the Light Reaper. The Light Reaper, I believe the amount of difficulty should be equal to when you come across him the third time, because you're almost kitted out, but you're not quite up to the challenge. He's beatable, but you're only given one chance, so you have to do it perfectly. Now, I believe that would be about the level of difficulty you want the Light Reaper to be at the end game, equal to his third appearance. But he doesn't get any tougher. You get stronger, but by the time you get to the late game and you get to the point where you're challenging him for the final time and you're allowed to have repeated deaths, at that point he's not as big of a challenge as he would have been, when you came across him the third time, when you're almost solid in your build. That's the level of difficulty I think he needs to be at his stage in the game, because he has, at least one late game boss after him, the Sundered Monarch, and then depending on which ending you choose, you might have another boss after that. And that's yet another reason why the Sundered Monarch needs to be tuned up a lot. Outside of those boss behavior fixes, everything else is performance. They did fix the Light Reaper sword, because every time they do a patch, the special ability gets messed up some way. But without getting bogged down into specifics, that is, for the most part, the patch. My biggest takeaways are the stutter and the boss improvements. The autosave stutter being fixed is probably the biggest deal out of the entire patch, because there's been a lot of complaining about that on the forums, like I said earlier. But since that wasn't an issue that I personally came across, I believe that the boss behaviors is going to be the biggest improvement to my personal gameplay experience. The new content, however, is what's going to bring me back to the game, because I do want to see a lot of the new content that's coming out that they plan on rolling out before the end of the year. And just plain performance improvements, seeing as how I've not had any issues with performance in the game, that's not going to get me to come back. I want to see improvements to the boss behavior, yes, so each playthrough that I have gets consistently tougher and is more challenging, and because New Game Plus even is not that big of a challenge as it stands right now, or as of my last playthrough, which was preceding this most recent patch. But right now I'm working on my very first intelligence build in Dark Souls 3. I am an Unga Bunga enjoyer. I've not really played Dex in Dark Souls 3. I've got a Dex intelligence build. It's primarily intelligence, but I want to use Sister Freed's Scythe, so I've got a lot invested in the Dex and more in strength than I would. Unfortunately, I started with the Sorcerer class, so I've got a lot of attunement and other different stats that keep me from being very effective in PvP. But I've been PvPing a lot with my new Dark Souls 3 character. It's been a lot of fun, but I did not build the character for PvP. Just seeing as how active the online play is, I've just been doing a lot more PvP with the build than I thought I would. It's making me want to start a strength build, something I'm more comfortable with, and do more PvP in Dark Souls 3, knowing that it is as active as it is. So if you're playing Dark Souls 3 right now, you might catch me invading. I might be a bad red, I might be a good blue, it just depends. And I'm really looking forward to the content coming from Lords of the Fallen to drag me out of my replays, because even though I do love those games, I've been through the content so much that something new and refreshing would be good. And that's why I do like the live service aspect of this game, because we do get new content rolled out in a Souls-like game without having to wait for a DLC. And then eventually a DLC might drop. I hope this game just doesn't turn into a very niche cult following of a game, because if that's the case, it might not have the online player base to keep the game alive. We might not see that new content, we might not see these constant improvements, and we might not see enough units sell to keep Hexworks investing into this game. Now, my personal likes that I want to see in this game, like I said before, I want to see consumables so we can initiate invasions and co-op play from anywhere on the map. I would also like to see hyper armor added to some classes of weapons. It seems like you only have hyper armor if you're using like a colossal weapon. I would like to see it on just great sword level weapons and maybe a little bit on like straight sword level weapons, but having no hyper armor means that when you get in trades with other players in PvP, you have no chance. It's the first one to get a shot in is going to keep your posture broken, and that's why I also want to see some changes to poise as well. In PvP, it feels like there's no passive poise to the player, that you're always going to have posture broken, and because this game doesn't have a light roll that really gets you out of the distance of some weapons, you're really going to be stuck with your posture broken even by the faster, smaller weapons. There should be a trade-off depending on what class of weapon that you're up against. If you're up against a colossal weapon, a roll shouldn't get you out of the reach of that weapon, but if you're up against something like twin swords, you should be able to roll away from it. But with how the posture system works in this game, once you're broken, you tend to stay broken and you can't really roll away from it even if you have a light load. There doesn't seem to be enough travel distance on it. I believe that a light load should allow you to have a roll that can get you out of the distance of the smaller weapons. But even fist weapons tend to keep you staggered. So outside of the one-shot spells, I think once PvP gets fixed to the point where they can then focus again on balancing, I would like to see something done about the poise and posture system in this game, because I don't believe you need to be kept staggered just because you were late to the punch. But then again, that also makes the Umbral Eye of Loash that much more important in PvP. It has a lot of use in PvE. You can take boss punishment right to the face without having to deal with any sort of consequences, but it also helps in PvP too. You can stay there, and a hit that would otherwise put you in a stagger until you're dead, you can just eat all that punishment and get a fully charged hit on your opponent. But I don't think you should have to utilize that eye just so you don't get staggered by an opponent who happens to be faster to the punch. I think there needs to be a hyper armor system on more classes of weapons, and I do think that they need to change something about passive poise and the way the posture system works in order to make PvP more fun, because I really don't like the trades. I don't like the back and forth. Like I said, if you're the one that gets staggered, whether you're on the receiving or the giving end, whoever gets staggered is going to be the one that loses 9 times out of 10. I think that's more important than fixing the one-shot spells. It's easy enough to get around spells. A lot of them are slow to cast. A lot of them are very linear, and all you have to do is angle to get away from them. I think the poise and posture and hyper armor, all that's what I would like them to focus on once it comes to balancing. But first, they have to get the PvP working. But that's all I got for today. I want to give a shout out to From Software for winning Best Action Game of the Year this year at the Game Awards for Armored Core 6, one of the most fun games I've played this year. But without further ado, give me a like, hit subscribe, and peace.